What is happening here? Anthony Six Scale Mafia. I'm joined by brother cousins, my man
Hey,
Jay in the house. What is up, man?
what's up with you? Good to be here as always.
As always, man. So we are working on this segment. If you're watching this now, it's probably premiering live, but it is pre-recorded.
No.
And we're going to talk about specific topics throughout these shows. The series of shows here was kind of interesting, right? Because as you know, I was having some fun with some of my Terminator figures.
Yeah,
Taking some photos, and I'm actually working on a review of the T1000. I was like, might as well. Not many people have seen a lot of these, right? I got a lot of new collectors coming in. Of course, we talked about this before in the past, but it got me thinking again as well. I was like, are they ever going to give us like all the old stuff again, right? I mean, is it all? It's been a lot of Disney, a little bit of DC. We are getting a couple new IPs showing up,
right.
Right,
Predator or whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean, they're finally giving us a prey, though. Of course, you know, we've gotten I don't know how many Predators over the years, so it's nice to see this again. And then of course we're seeing like League of Legends and Kamen Rider, One Piece. I mean, they are starting to hit some IPs, albeit they're fairly new in that respect. But all of our old stuff, like that's what a lot of us got into at the time, right? We weren't collecting because there was, you know, Star Wars and Marvel,
right?
So. And some of these, and that's one thing I noticed, as great as the T1000 is, it's starting, I mean, it still looks great, don't get me wrong, but a lot of these are showing their age.
They are. They
totally
are. Oh.
And you know, because you have a lot of this as well. So, I mean, we're getting to work, we got a RoboCop again, I guess. So, but it seems so, I mean, what do you think about all this? I mean, do you think, like, should they, revisit the well, or, you know,
yeah, I mean, I think they should. I mean, especially right now that I think with the writer strikes and everything that's going on, at some point, the well is going to run dry on content. Still a lot of content to come, and I know that, you know, a lot of shows and a lot of, you know, films and stuff are recorded, you know, years, and then are just an edit base for like another year. So it's a lot of stuff that's still coming out. But at some point, I think you got to look at the IPs that they have now. Like, let's be honest, Marvel isn't what it used to be. You know, as much as I hate to say that, it isn't. And I think sales eventually will, you know, make note of that. So what they're going to end up doing is going back to the well on, you know, beloved IPs that are time tested, such as Terminator, such as Predator, and all that, you know, RoboCop and all that stuff. So I can definitely see them going in, and they want to beat their chest. You know, they've done a lot of improvements over the years since 2013, 2014, when these Terminator figures came out. So I could definitely see them doing like another, you know, having another go at it, especially with the T1000. I mean, you can look at it and see, that's a young Robert Patrick. That's Robert Patrick at 19, 20 years old. You can definitely see it. But if you look at it close enough, it does. And we kind of said this last week about Kate Bishop, while we thought she looked a little, she had a dated animated type of look to him. Like, it looked like a sculpt from 2014, which isn't a bad thing. But looking at the sculpts we get today are HD, like this Alfred Molina Doc Ock I got here. I know it's not the expression a lot of people wanted.
Sure, yeah.
Damn, it looks like a person. It looks like you put the camera on it. That looks like, you know, you can fool some people. A good person, good with the camera, a good photographer can definitely make you think that you're not looking at a 1/6 scale figure, but you're looking at a person. You know, and they're doing what they can do with paint applications today is way better than what they were able to do, you know, 10, 13 years ago. So yeah, I think just to show, you know, their artistry, I think they'll go back and touch those IPs. Now, when? Who knows? You know what I'm saying? I know a lot of people would think that Terminator, some people may feel that Terminator is the franchise is kind of, not going to say dead, it's never dead, but it's laying dormant right now. You know, a lot of people didn't like that last movie, like they didn't do what it should have done.
Well, no, I mean, let's be real. I mean, it's Terminator and Terminator 2. I mean, everything else after is kind of not as, which I get, but there's a certain, you know, there's a certain level there, though. I mean, there's the nostalgia is a factor with anything. I mean, we're looking at, I mean, if we take Star Wars, we're looking at an almost 50-year-old movie.
Yeah.
You know, and people are still clamoring for original trilogy stuff, right? In itself, I mean, those all came out.
Yeah.
Those are all old school, right? So I don't see much of a difference. I mean, is the popularity still there? Yes, the popularity of the IP Star Wars, I guess, yeah, that's dominant, right?
Yes.
We're getting Disney Plus shows. Well, that's about it, really. I mean, there's no movies yet, but they got the comics going. They've got novels coming out. I mean, it's still very relevant. But then on the flip side, you have somebody like Stallone doing his legacy collection, right? So there's clearly some market to be had for you know, movies of that era, you know, whether it's the 80s or the 90s. I mean, you know, I just got the Cobra figure. You know, they did a Rocky, a Rambo. I mean, that's just Stallone, but it's in the same vein of these types of movies that we have grown up with. There's a market.
With Clint as well. And I think also it's also the allure of these characters, like I think the allure of the Stallone figures of this is his stamp on it. Like, this is his company, you know, these are his figures. And I think that also has a little like, oh, I'm actually buying it from the guy, you know. I think that's a little extra kick with buying those figures. And we want it. I mean, outside of the properties that he's given us, I mean, there's so many great characters he has portrayed. And I'm a fan of just the guy, just the writer, the director.
Sure, of course, yeah.
You know,
I mean,
so his IPs for me are like, that's like the icing on the cake. I'm like, damn, you got Rocky, you have Rambo, you know, just to name a few. Then you talk about Cobra, I'm sure he'll do it over the top, you know.
Yeah, so, I mean, might as yeah.
You know, so, you know, shit, Tango and Cash, why not? You know, so getting those properties, you know, from those guys, you know, means a lot. And I mean, same with their legends, and they're also kind of up there in age. So, you know, don't want to be grim, but you also kind of want to have a piece of that nostalgia and a piece of their legacy, if you will. Having those figures in hand, him, and especially Dirty Harry, especially Clint. You know, I'm always been a big Clint fan, so having those figures is a lot. And it's sad because they're like, so, you know, in the show, you know, harking back to what you're saying, the popularity of them, like the Clints damn near sold out. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. They go quick. Because you're right. I mean, these are legacies. I mean, that's even Stallone's shop is called the Legacy Collection. You know, so it makes me, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Hot Toys either. Yeah. Right. But to what you're saying though, right, to your point there, is that a lot of these are still great. Whether it's not just Terminator. I mean, going into Predator, going into Commando, you know, John Matrix, Alien, you know, with Ripley, you know, even the different xenomorphs, the level of quality has improved vastly over the last 10 years. So, and there's always new collectors coming in, and granted, a lot of them are, you know, of a younger age, but maybe they've also liked these movies. I don't know. You know, maybe they're finding these movies, just like how we found certain movies that are even older, right? They were like, oh, well, that's really cool. So I'm hoping that either they get back into doing that here and there, like you mentioned. There's the writer strike, the actor strike. I mean, they can always just pull Star Wars. They can always pull Marvel. I mean, they could do another Avengers 2.0 line. I mean, that's, you know,
that's nostalgia. That's a 10-year, you know, that's over 10 years old now. And those figures are starting. I broke my neck back in the day. I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was, you know, new to Hot Toys when I started collecting those figures. And it took me about 4 years to collect the not the Infinity War, but the original Avengers line. And looking at them, I will never part with them because I knew what it took to get those figures. But looking at them, yeah, they're dated. They're totally dated. We definitely need some new, and they already kind of started. You know, they gave us the Mark 7.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, we got the Mark 7. We got Captain America. And we got another Loki. So they just need to keep going. You know, we definitely could use, because he never was that Thor never was really a good figure. It's serviceable. but they could definitely, do a better Hemsworth now. And definitely, I'm just looking at him, so I'm looking on camera.
Oh yeah.
And they can definitely also do another Hulk as well. I mean, I love that Hulk, but it'd be interesting to see what they can do with like a seamless body or something, or just what they can do today. The technology has proved so much. So, and they're willing to go in on those properties.
I think so. I mean, and that's, even then you're right. It is a little bit of a nostalgia. If it's 10 plus, it's hard to determine like what is, but I would still say that either way, yeah. I mean, if we're 10 years upward, it's not a bad idea to, revisit things. It's just not. I mean, me personally, I want more of the 80s and the 90s stuff.
Yes.
But even then, if they were like, hey, we're just sticking to Disney, there's still a lot there that they could do to show, hey, listen, because I don't know about you, but some of my figures, I mean, I'm a little fortunate being in the desert, but there's a lot of people who aren't, who are, Midwest or East Coast, lots of humidity, jackets are falling apart, belts are just, disintegrating before you.
Right before your very eyes. And, we both have this guy. You could probably see him back. Look, you can't see it. You can probably see it a little bit. Shootout Terminator right there. Yep. Right by Bill and Ted.
I see him right there. Yep. He is right somewhere there.
There he is.
I'm on back. There he is.
Yep.
Now, fortunately, mine is in great condition. But again, I'm in the desert. I mean, we don't have that humidity.
I've never had a problem with any of my like pleather goods, deteriorate. Never had that problem really. Have it with this figure. The jacket is a little ripped on the shoulders, and it's funny because something told me go and look where you bought it from. I went through my eBay history, got it in 2019, and I looked at the seller and I remember the guy's name, and I remember I was like, yep, this came from Florida.
Oh wow, that's
there you go. It was mint when I got it. It was mint, but I guess once it came out of that climate and came in here for all these years, 3 years later, you start to see it go. It's peeling. It's not bad. And it kind of, because it's the shootout edition. He's supposed to look like he got shot up and shit. So it works, but just the fact that I know that it's slowly going, it's like, damn, I need to get another jacket. So
yeah, and some of the bodies too. I mean, like my DX10, for those that don't know, is Terminator 2 Arnold, non-battle damaged, but for the majority of the movie Arnold.
Right.
And his ankle pegs have disintegrated. At least one of them. I mean, I'm talking the actual ankle pegs. It's like it's if somebody would just shave it down, so it'll no longer fasten. Like it's some of these literally break down. I mean, they're that old, and that it's something that I always try to talk about on the show. I know you've mentioned it here and there as well. A lot of us like, whether it's 80s or not, I think there's still a window of at least a minimum of 10 years that a lot of times people want to go buy backward, or they're new to collecting and they're like, oh wow, look, they have this and this and that, and I want to go buy this. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's not very advisable, because people are going to be buying into stuff that's flaking, falling apart, breaking down. It's a tough line.
And here's the thing, it's not, and look, I get it. It's one of the reasons why I stopped doing Good Morning Grails. I slowed down tremendously. We had that conversation, privately. I was like, I kind of, stopped doing Good Morning Grails because I started seeing what was happening. Like some of these pieces, of course, like some things, it's going to be hard. You'll see again. I don't know when we're going to see like another Stormtrooper Luke and Han Solo. I don't know when we'll see that. Maybe around the 50th anniversary. Maybe not. Maybe they'll move on.
Maybe not.
But there are pieces out there like that when I was buying. And here's the thing: you're paying a premium. You're paying over in a lot of times retail to get these older figures, and the quality just isn't there, or it's breaking down. And so you're just paying. You're paying too much money for something that's not going to last, and it's not good. Especially in an era where we're getting so much stuff, so many new figures and so many new updates and 2.0s. And I think 2.0s are a thing. I think we're going to get more 2.0. So it doesn't make sense to spend $700 on an old figure that has problems or bad joints or you know, a head, you know, or pleather goods are disintegrating when there's new stuff right around the corner. You may have to wait, but and we talked about this before, one of the biggest pieces of advice we can give you as seasoned collectors is patience. Patience is everything in this game. You don't need to have everything all at once. I know sometimes you just need to get it. You're like, man, I just want to have this figure. It's an older figure. I just need this Michael Jackson. Look, I'll tell you, I went and I bought the Michael Jackson Thriller. Great figure. Great figure. Look at that NR when that's coming out. Now, the NR is not Thriller. I get it. It's not the Thriller.
True.
But come on, that head sculpt is going to look 100%.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so much newer, and you know, which is, you know, it's funny. I actually have a Michael Jackson right behind me, right there. Beat it.
Which is one of the best ones.
Yeah.
One of the best ones.
Yeah. And you know what? That still holds, though. Like we were talking about earlier, is that I still have his jacket's great. Everything's great. Everything's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it also has to do with my location. I know some people aren't as fortunate. I mean, I have a Brandon Lee Crow that just completely fell apart. The jacket's just completely shredded. His pants are just eviscerated, man. They're just, and that's horrible, man. That's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's just, the
And I
2.0 thing's not really an issue for me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and that's the thing. Sorry to cut you off, and that's the thing. And I know some people are gonna be like, "Well, you guys got the Ghostbusters. You guys have it all. What are you talking about?" I would say just be. If you want to buy a Grail, do your research. Make sure it comes from a place that has a good climate, and just know what you're getting into. And if it's something that doesn't have a lot of pleather parts, look out for it. Or, you know, buying things new in boxes isn't always good too, because then you really don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, it's a random box.
You just never know.
You know?
Like, I didn't get the like when I was looking for the Ghostbusters, I had the opportunity to actually get a brand new, fresh, new unbox, and I didn't want it because I was like, I'm gonna get it new unbox, I'm gonna open it up, and damn proton packs aren't gonna work. So that, you know, you just gotta really be careful of what you're buying and what you're getting into when you're buying these. I guess what I would say is, don't just be careful if you're gonna buy a Grail. Think it out. Is this something that you think could possibly be reissued at some point, or 2.0? Or if it's something older, if it's something from the 80s, or just check the condition and just know that it may be a risk involved. Buy at your own risk is what I'm trying to say.
Well, no, I mean, I absolutely have to, because, you know, there are times where, I mean, if figure's that old and it's sealed, you don't know the condition. Has it been sitting in a storage? Has it been very humid over there and their location? What's the environment? And then I always do that. If I ever try to go back and I find something like that, I ask them, say, hey, can we open this for inspection? I will likely buy it from you if you know, if there's no problems. But there are times, dude, you'll open those figures and they're slimed. You know, they almost like melt. It's weird. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know if you guys have ever seen any of that.
This guy, the Superman was like that. When I got the Superman, he looked good in the package. I opened it up. His neck, the head sculpt was like stuck to the neck, and not like a go. It was like kind of sticky, and I was like, oh no. And then after it touched air for a couple of minutes, I posed him around a little bit. The crest on his chest started cracking a little bit, and I was like, shit. So it just stays in that pose. He looks good in that pose. Well, wherever I'm pointing at. Right there. Yeah, he looks good in that pose. There we go. He looks good in that pose. Right. Yeah, I don't move him around too much because, and honestly, I'll tell you, that was like a $480 figure right there. So
yeah. So how does that make you feel? You know, you're like, oh shit, look, I just spent all this money. And so it's very, that's why I'm like, hey, listen, it's not a bad idea. And look, we know that there's a market. I mean, if you're looking at third-party figures, you know, they're putting out Terminators just as an example. I mean, you've got, they've kind of recasted, you know, but still, like, they did a DX10, they did a DX13, they're putting out a T1000. There's a market there. People are buying this stuff. You know, we have InArt coming in, and they were also asking stuff. hey, what are your guys' kind of, you know, 80s movies you guys would like to see? And granted, they're just kind of, you know, feeling the waters here, but you have to ask why, right? If there wasn't a market, why even ask the community, right? So, I mean, there is a market there. And I feel like there's money on the table still. And like you mentioned, that if it's not Hot Toys, somebody else. But even then, the technology has improved since then.
Absolutely. So much has improved so much. And that's the thing. I would wait. And like you said, all these other companies out here, your NARTs, and what I love about NR at this point is that they're kind of what Hot Toys used to be before they got those two major IPs. And, you know, and well, Disney being the major IP, that kind of encompasses everything, honestly. I love what they're doing. I'm loving that they're picking characters like, you know, Michael Jackson. The rumor has it that, I don't know if that's speculation or if they said they're doing a Bruce Lee. I think they said they're doing a Bruce Lee. So they're doing all these characters, and Terminators, you know, they start asking about Terminator as well. So I think we will get some Terminator stuff from them. They're doing these kind of IPs that Hot Toys isn't doing right now. And here's the thing, even them saying that they're thinking of doing it, that kind of puts a fire under Hot Toys' ass to go back in and say, hey, let's pump these out again. So it's good for collectors one way or another. And that's why, and like I said, that's why I'm pretty much, for me, like not really going in and getting as many old figures as I used to do, because it's the opportunities are there. I mean, these third party is killing it right now. They are. I know I don't particularly care for some of the quality of those third party figures, like that Terminator third party was like, but
no,
put the fire underneath these license companies to do the figures. So, because it's like, oh, it's a demand for people will buy this. Okay, let's just go ahead and churn another batch out. So, and that's good for us. So, yeah, I think that's the best way to go. I think it's the best way to go is just to have patience and just wait, because somebody's going to pick up those IPs. Somebody's going to do somebody's going to do the Ghostbusters. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of, I mean, yeah, even then we've got third party doing Ghostbusters. I know they're not going to be that great. Like, I mean, third parties are, you know, some are cool, but for the most part, I get, you know, they're not that great, right? But sometimes you're like, well, I'll take what I can get, and that's cool if it's affordable. But that's to the point though, like there is a market for this out there. There's a definite market, and I feel like for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Hot Toys in particular, that, you know, hey, they're just like, you know, we have our hands full with Disney, so we're just going to stick to that, right? Because we can mass produce this Star Wars and we can mass produce this Marvel and just kind of, you know, sustain our business model that way, right? They're making a lot of money. They have good relations with Disney. Why do they really want to kind of go back, right? So I could see it. I could see it in their perspective. Like, well, we're doing great. We're doing great. But then they give us these little breadcrumbs, like another RoboCop. So then I'm kind of like, well, what does this mean? I mean, are we gonna see more of this, or are we not?
Getting the 𝗕𝗘𝗖𝗢𝗠, or are we getting like where are we going with this, guys?
Yeah, it's you know, and I'm not even. Look, I know I'm getting a little off track here, but even if they didn't do the stuff we've already gotten, it would be really cool if they still revisited older films that they've never done. You know, just, hey, we've never made this IP. I'm trying to think of a movie. I can't think at the top of my head, but
I don't know why I'm thinking Enemy Mine. I don't know.
Okay, there you go. Just as an example, here you go. Now the problem with that though is that when they make an announcement like that, 90% of this community is gonna be like, what is that?
What is Enemy Mine?
Yeah, so then they won't buy it. And so I get it. I get there's a mass appeal for Star Wars and Marvel. So of course they're gonna follow the money. I mean, that's a given. But they should still have a team, where I think dedicated to being like, hey, let's cater to this demographic as well. And you're right. And if they don't, someone else is going to scoop that up. And I'm hoping NART does do something out there in that vein. I mean, they were talking about, Christopher Reeve's Superman, right? I mean, that's old. That's late 70s. Granted, that still falls into the superhero stuff and the Warner Brothers DC licensing. Yeah, I'll take it though. I'll take it. But
Oh yeah.
you know, can you get into doing Terminator? Can you get into doing Predators? I don't know. Again, I know Hot Toys has done this, and some people will argue that and be like, hey, listen, that's one of the big arguments I've heard about in art, is that people are like, well, look, Hot Toys has already done this shit, so why do I care? And I'm like, yeah, but that's a little short-sighted, because a lot of that stuff, minus maybe a couple of figures, right, like the 22 Batman and Pennywise,
Yeah.
those are kind of recent, but a lot of the older stuff Hot Toys did years ago.
They did years ago, and then other companies have done it. I mean, other companies had did Terminator figures. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's you can't really fault InArt for taking a property and doing it. I mean, because at this point, and I mean, and people would say it, the price points are different in those two companies. But usually, when they right at this point where we are right now, the IPs that they have done along with Hot Toys, they have done a better job. You know, I mean, shit, that Joker is phenomenal, but we all know that Hot Toys has their Artisan Joker coming out, but we don't have it in hand yet. We don't have it in hand
to compare.
Yeah, we can't compare it now, but we can compare is we can compare. We started seeing some photos and some videos. Shout out to our guy Joel, just did the
Big Brother.
Big Brother just did the video and review for it. Pennywise, and that thing looks phenomenal. Now, don't get me wrong, when he did a comparison of the head sculpts between the InArt one and the Hot Toys one, the Hot Toys still wasn't a slouch. It looked good.
Oh no, by any stretch. Yeah, no. Yeah.
But you can still see that there was a difference, you know, with the rooted hair, the way the teeth were painted, all that. So
I also don't think that Hot Toy or that InArt is in direct competition either. You know, I know we like to just kind of grab everybody together and pile them in there and say, hey, this is all like this competitive market here. But I had been saying this since almost 2 years, almost now, year and a half, that when InArt first wanted to, you know, come out and say, hey, we're making figures, it's that it's not going to be for everybody. Right. It's just not. It's the demographic is, you know, it's a little bit more expensive. I think they're trying to kind of bring down, you know, some of the larger scale things that like Queen Studios would do, or maybe J&D, you know, that kind of quality, and hybridize it of sorts and bring it down into 6 scale. So it's not going to be for the mass market. It's just not. So it's hard to even make a comparison. I mean, you know, on one hand, yeah, you can get something for $250, or you can get this one for $500 or $600. And then it's not fair to say like, well, this one's definitely better. Well, I would argue that maybe it is, because there's a lot more quality involved in here. But then on the other side, someone's like, well, this is more affordable and this is cool for me as a representation. So I think there's a level of fandom that's there. I mean, if we go back to Terminator and say that InArt puts out a Terminator 2 figure and it's $600, well, my level of fandom just already dictates my decision. I'd be like, well, I'm buying it. Right. Obviously the quality would be there, but then on the flip side, if Hot Toys is like, hey, listen, we're gonna 2.0 the DX10, right? Yeah. And it's a little bit cheaper. It's gonna be tough. I would end up going, you know, probably for what I think would be the better quality, right? But at the same time, depending on how deep that fandom lies, you might end up buying both. Right? There's some people you mentioned Joker who are also buying the Artisan Joker from Hot Toys in addition to their InArt Jokers.
And that's the thing. I mean, with me, I think it's funny. My brother, second brother, he wasn't going to get that InArt Joker. Then he saw because he has the Hot Toys one and is content with the Hot Toys one. Loves it. He doesn't sell shit. Now that he actually seen the production photos of the Pennywise, he's like, oh no, I'm getting that. I was like, damn, for real? He's like, yeah, I'm getting it. Because that's his fandom. His fandom, that's how he has a strong fandom when it comes to horror. He loves horror. So he's like, no, I'm getting both. I'm like, dude, really? Me, I already knew. I was like, when I saw the not the production photos, but when I saw the prototype, I was like, yeah, yeah, I think I'm gonna get this. And I actually sold my Hot Toys to get that because I wanted the best representation. Because I already knew I wasn't gonna have it was no need for me to have 2 Pennywise figures.
Sure,
So I might as well just get the best.
Your
one.
level of fandom is different than,
Right. I don't need 2. I don't need 2 killer clowns. Just give me the.
No, I get you. I mean, it's very. It's like, okay, if In Art or somebody else, if J&D, because I know they're still supposedly doing 6 scale, either one, if either of them put out a Terminator 2 figure, I'll still keep my Terminator 2 figures from Hot Toys, because that level of fandom is there. And I'm like, well, wait, I'll just pose them different, have a whole shelf that's like Terminator 2. I'm down with that. Whereas a lot of people may not. Like with you and Pennywise, you're like, well, it's cool, but I don't need 2, right? That level is a little different for every person has their own tastes, right? I mean, I couldn't, some of us have every Luke Skywalker, some of us only need 1, it's just I don't know, everybody has a different approach on how they collect. But as far as like I was mentioning, like as far as going back though, it's tricky, because I think eventually things will come out again. We're seeing a lot of that already. And then of course, as we mentioned, and with In Art on the table, we got some other companies coming up. There's opportunities there. I mean, there's definitely opportunities for people. I don't want it to be this revolving door though. That's my only thing. I don't want to be like, well, we're in the second age of where everything gets redone. Exactly. And then 10 years from now, we're in the third age of where everything gets redone. That same kind of.
Next thing you know, when we're in our 50s, we're talking about 4.0s.
Yeah, that's tough. I hope it does. And that's why I mentioned earlier, like, it'd be cool if Hot Toys or somebody else grabs an older IP that no one's done too. Like something from the 80s or the 90s, where you're just, because we get a lot of the third party stuff. We get a lot of customs that people do and say, here you go. Here's, some Beetlejuice, or here's, I don't know, Heat.
Weapon.
Lethal Weapon, let's and there's a lot of customs again like that. But what if a company's like, hey, we've never done this IP, we're gonna do it, it's modern, modern technology, modern everything that we're doing, that I think is more appealing. But that's maybe just myself. I'm perhaps you and maybe a few others, but that's how I like to collect. I don't necessarily want to have one giant run of something in particular. I kind of like having that mix. I look behind you and I see all these different IPs. That's how I vibe. I'm like, oh, I like that. What I'm seeing reflects everything that I've loved, not just one particular IP. And maybe that's not sustainable as a business now, but it definitely was at the time though with Hot Toys. Again, as you mentioned, that's what it was.
It was.
You're getting all sorts of IPs.
That was the Hot Toys of old that I miss, and I think a lot of collectors, a lot of seasoned 1/6 scale collectors miss, because that was the thing. I mean, come on, we got I can tell you, it's funny. This was my first 3 Hot Toys figures, all very different. Iron Man Mark III, the bank robber Joker, which we all know what happened with that.
Right.
Love you, Rob.
Shout out to Rob.
The bank robber Joker, and then it was the Thriller Michael Jackson. The Thriller. Look how diverse that in a collection.
Of course. Yeah.
Just those first 3 figures. So whereas today it would be like an Iron Man, a Joker if you're lucky, and another Iron Man.
Yeah, I know there is a market there, and I guess that was kind of the whole point of today's conversation, was really, hey, what's out there, man? There's so much potential. Are people wanting? It cannot just be us, right? Is my point, right? Because we see third parties revisiting some 80s IPs. There's a market out there. There is a nostalgia factor there. And we kind of wanted to touch on that today. Again, this is kind of like a shorter video, guys, that we're going to do. We're going to pre-record, obviously, different segments, different conversations. I would say let us know in the comments, are we alone? Or would you guys all like to see Hot Toys or anybody else revisit a lot of movies from the 80s and 90s? And if not revisit, what other properties that no one's ever done would you guys like to see, man? Because I know we're not alone in this.
We
I know we're not alone.
We can't be alone. We can't.
No.
We can't be. No.
We're not. And if you're still watching this at this point in the video, then clearly you're into it as well. So let us know. And I think next week we'll do another topic, but I'm not sure what just yet. That's something we would have to think about. But of course, as always, you know, this is going to be we're going to have these segments. We'll probably keep them around 35, 45 minutes. So for future reference, you know, and whatever topics we decide, or if there's anything you guys actually want to know, we can dive into. You know, we're not going to be talking. This isn't about talking about figure releases or, the typical stuff that's happening. Like, let's talk about either repairing things or, checking out, like we're talking about older properties or display things or ideas or just all that sort of stuff. Figure maintenance, all that we're going to just kind of discuss in these kind of smaller segmented episodes. So yeah, definitely do check out Jay if you haven't. Myself, I don't know what else is coming up. I do have a couple reviews myself and always the Saturday show, but yeah, that's I think we're gonna wrap on this one, guys.
Good. Who says?
Yeah, we're out. He's out.